Hello and welcome to The Green Room by Deloitte, an award-winning podcast where we explore the topics that matter most in business. I'm Ethan Worth, and this is episode number 53. Hey George, so we're back in the studio for what will be the final time before our mini summer break, and you're our only guest.
Well, I'm absolutely honoured. But yeah, hi Ethan, hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Green Room. Sadly, Lizzie is already on her holiday, isn't she? So very jealous.
She's left us early, so it's just me and you. For this mini episode, I think we're gonna do a bit of a look back at some of our highlights from this season, some of the great guests that we've got in our new studio, and we're also going to reflect on what a big change it's been for us. It's been really exciting, getting lots of messages from friends and family about the new campaign when they get a kind of Instagram push. And how have you found that?
You said it yourself, Ethan. There's been an awful lot of change this season. We've got a brand new, fantastic studio, and our production team is better than ever. And we're really producing some great content. So we're very, very fortunate to be in this position. But you mentioned in campaign, we were, the podcast was central to a big UK-wide national advertising campaign in railway stations, radio, digital advertising, and that gave the Green Room a huge push in terms of the numbers. I think we rose up to top 5 in the business category on Apple and Spotify. And now, after all of your downloads and listens and shares and likes, we are now the UK's biggest branded business podcast, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm really proud of everyone on the team.
Yeah. They're the big dogs.
Yeah, well, I think 40 million people saw those adverts in all the UK's train stations. We tried to do it during the month of May when the UK was at the centre of everyone's attention with the King's coronation and Eurovision and other huge events where people were travelling around the country using public transport for that. So it was a really, really powerful campaign.
Saw your selfie on LinkedIn with the with the billboard in the background.
Yes, I think we're all contractually obliged to do a selfie on LinkedIn. But again, it just shows how far and wide the podcast can go. I've had messages from all walks of life, from students and graduates sort of starting out their careers to C-suite executives from working for major European banks, for instance. So it just shows how far it can go.
And for those like new joiners, I think it gives a good kind of flavour for the firm, the kind of questions that we talk about, the style. I think it's a really, really good hook.
But Ethan, what are some of your episode highlights from the season just gone?
So we've had so many. I don't know. First of all, it's really nice to be in person and actually meeting people in person, and what a difference that makes. I think we kicked off the year with Hege Bjornsson from IKEA talking all about the circular economy. That really stuck with me. I think some of the kind of the messaging around how we use, I don't know, something like 1.2 Earths per year, and how we can really cut that down with a bit more of a circular strategy, and also just what that means. It's such a buzzword. Actually delving into that a bit more.
How we've designed our retail outlets. As an example, when you come to an IKEA store today, you should meet a circular hub, which is part of the journey where you could buy and sell back, pre-loved IKEA furniture. And that's one of the things that we're working on at the moment. So moving from testing and trying these different campaigns and initiatives where we buy back IKEA furniture or enable people to more easily pass on existing furniture that they no longer want, how can we really scale that and make that part of the concept of what we offer everywhere? So that's one of the opportunities that we're looking at the moment, but also how we enable others in the ecosystem around us. One example is our shopping centre in Hammersmith, where we've partnered with Social Enterprise, which is one of a big fan. I've been a big fan for a long time, many years, right from when they started up in Crystal Palace, the Library of Things. I also have one down the road from me here in Bow, and use them all the time. Like you say, James, why would you want to own lots of stuff if it just sits and clogs up your storage? When many of us now live in small flats and we have limited storage space, so the idea that you can access the sort of things that you need, whether it's from a Library of Things type setup or whether it's peer-to-peer. So I think there is so much opportunity to think differently about ownership, but also about really being mindful around making things last and passing those on.
And then, of course, we had Alan and Sharon. Alan Jope being the CEO of Unilever, and Sharon, who's our former global chair. Great chemistry between them, and just two like real titans. Just to learn from some of that wisdom was really fascinating.
And that's one of the things I really learned, because at different points and in the pandemic, because of the different stresses, I could feel myself getting close to burnout. And I was like, I can't look after my team if I'm not looking after myself.
But I do think my favourite guest was Richard Shotton, the behavioural scientist. First of all, it was our first episode in the new studio, and I was so nervous. I think both me and Lizzie were really swatted up for that one, so I had a lot of like anecdotes for that. Really did my research, and he some of the stories that he told, I think, about like Red Bull's campaign for crushing up cans of Red Bull and leaving them outside clubs, and just really those kind of little nudges that can really change human behaviour.
So, for example, there's a wonderful study from a psychologist at Arizona State University called Robert Cialdini, and he worked with a hotel chain in Southwest USA. And back in 2008, he persuades this hotel to let him alter the messages in guest rooms, encouraging them to reuse their towels. And sometimes he runs messages that say, please reuse your towels, it's good for the environment. And when he does that, 35% of guests do so. Other times he runs messages that say, please reuse your towels, most guests do so. And in that setting, there's no mention of the environment, there's no logical, rational reason for complying. There is I think it's a 9 percentage point increase in compliance. So you're up to 44% of people reusing their towel. So his argument would be, even if 80% of people say that they are interested in the environment, that there are study after study saying, well, maybe sometimes the better way to persuade people is not to appeal to their better selves, it's to let them know what others are doing.
As a listener to that, I really enjoyed that episode, and I think everyone took something away from that. That's
no, it's great to get some of those kind of those big hitting guests, like published authors or CEOs, which I think we're stepping up this season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We covered some really good meaty topics, which I think everyone can resonate with. Generative AI is a bit of a buzzword for the year, and we had a really good conversation about ethical artificial intelligence with Dr. Sandra Wachter and Sulabh Sarao from our AI Institute, and that was a really, really fantastic episode.
I was going to say how we generated the intro to that using generative AI, which was slightly terrifying.
that was right. And actually, I mean, Deloitte's just published some research on generative AI usage, and I think 13 million people in the UK have used a generative AI tool, which just shows how much that's penetrating.
Half the population.
Yeah. And as well as AI, we covered some really interesting topics around sustainability. You mentioned the circular economy episode, and Tiffany and I had a really great conversation with Rodrigo Garcia Gonzalez from Notpla, which is an Earthshot Prize winner, and he demonstrated some of their fantastic seaweed-based plastic technology. I really remember he was pouring out some olive oil on the table from one of these seaweed containers, and then popped the bit of plastic in his mouth. So that was a powerful. I'm not sure how well that worked on an audio podcast, but this is why it's great.
YouTube,
we've got the cameras now. So, and then the final highlight for me was our recent episode that we did, actually, where we had James Barr and Mag Scott actually come on and talk really in a really open and personal way about their experiences being gay. I thought that was a fantastic episode, and something a little bit different from some of the other episodes that we've done this series.
Yeah, it felt really authentic, that one, and I too had to do some reflection during and after that as well. Yeah. And it was really eye-opening and quite powerful, I thought, that one.
And whilst it was eye-opening and powerful, we also had James Barr as the first podcast guest to appear in shorts, so which was a fantastic achievement for the podcast. I don't think I've quite got the legs for it, actually.
I think it is a lot easier to be yourself now, but I do think there's also a lot more noise from people that don't want you to be yourself. Everything's just louder than maybe it was, when we didn't have the internet. I think that's just the world we live in now. So it's a difficult question to answer, because we don't know what the world then would have been like. And without the noise we've got, would we have the rights we have now? Because we're able to protest in so many different ways, be a lot louder and get our message across better. So I think it's just a bit this and that. There's no real way of knowing whether it was easier to be yourself, to be queer in the early noughties before the internet, because we didn't have our rights then. So maybe the internet helped us get our rights.
So Ethan, that's a whistle-stop wrap-up of season 6, and please do go back and listen to, wherever you get your podcasts from, on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever. But Ethan, what's coming up in season 7?
Yeah, so I can't give too much away, but season 7 kicks off in September. We got lots of big guests, bigger and better than ever, and yeah, lots of exciting things. We'll be doing our trademark delving into the big questions that matter most to our people and businesses. And if there's anyone that you would like to see on the Green Room, if you've got any kind of burning questions or dream guests, please do email at greenroompodcast@deloitte.co.uk and give us your suggestions.
That's absolutely right. And Ethan, it won't just be you, me and Lizzie come September. We're currently auditioning. We're doing some X Factor style auditions across Deloitte to find a fourth host to join us, because we're trying to do lots of episodes over the next few months. So we're going to have a new familiar face, which will ease them in gently to the podcast.
Or
introduce you all to
face.
them.
I think we're judges' houses.
We're at the judges' houses stage now.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's heating up. Yeah.
Yeah. We're rocking up to your Malibu mansion, George, and
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Thanks again to all our new listeners for joining us this season, and we really hope that you'll be back for season 7. And that's all for this week and this season. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Green Room by Deloitte. We'll be back in September with new big questions. This podcast is produced by our very own Pod Squad and hosted by George Parrott, Lizzie Elston, and Ethan Worth. Thanks to our creative studio for their technical support. Original music by Ali Barrett.
A fun fact, Ethan, as you know, I've got a lovely miniature Labradoodle called Wendy, and on bonfire night, when there's lots of fireworks going out, some people play the radio for their dogs because they don't like the sound of fireworks, but I actually put on the podcasts to soothe my dog a little bit during.
Nice.
I'm not sure if she liked my voice, but she probably liked yours and Lizzie's actually. But
great tip for people, businesses, and Labradoodles everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.